The air in the Grand Conclave was thick with silence and power. High above the floor of the chamber, suspended by unseen forces, stood Captain Elias Rourke. He was alone except for two quiet diplomats from Earth, both dressed in simple gray suits. Around him, in towering rings that climbed into shadow, sat the leaders of over 300 starfaring species. Their forms were strange, some scaled, some glowing, some made of shifting mist, but all watched him with cold, judging eyes. At the center of the chamber, the Varelian High Arbiter rose. His body was tall and armored in black bone, his voice deep enough to shake the floor. "Species Terran 7, he boomed. "You stand accused of violating the Prime Accord by using forbidden quantum entanglement weapons during the Qatari border incident. You have endangered galactic stability. You will answer for your crime." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species had long seen humanity as loud, reckless, and young, a race that barely understood spaceflight before it started shouting across the stars. To them, this was proof. Humans were dangerous. Elias did not flinch. He did not beg. He simply looked up at the Arbiter and said, "We did not fire first." The Arbiter laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "Your ships unleashed temporal distortions that destroyed 3 Varelian cruisers." Sensors do not lie. Elias reached for his wrist. On it was a small, dull gray band, nothing fancy, just metal and wire. He tapped it once. Across the galaxy, every human ship went dark, not just turned off, vanished. On the bridge of the Varelian flagship orbiting Mars, alarms blared as human freighters, patrol cutters, and even mining drones disappeared from every screen. In Earth's orbit, defense platforms blinked out. In neutral ports, human vessels simply ceased to exist in sensor readings. It was as if humanity had been erased from the universe in a single breath. But it wasn't destruction. It was something else. Back in the conclave, the Arbiter's eyes narrowed. "What trick is this?" Elias didn't answer. Instead, a single pulse echoed through every communication channel in the chamber, clean, sharp, and human. It carried no threat, only truth. We were never the aggressors, but we remember who started it. Then the impossible happened. The Council's own sensors, machines that had mapped black holes and tracked time ripples, suddenly went blind. Not jammed, not hacked. Their data streams collapsed into static, as if reality itself had been rewritten just for them. Panic flickered in alien eyes. A Lumini delegate gasped, their soft light dimming. A Drathan warrior gripped his weapon not out of anger, but fear. Because for the first time, the galaxy realized humans weren't just another species asking for a seat at the table. They were already rewriting the rules. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a hidden command center known only as Geneva Command, Dr. Mira Voss watched the live feed with her hands pressed flat against the console. She wasn't a soldier. She was a physicist who loved quiet mornings and strong tea. But she had helped build the very thing that had just stunned the galaxy into silence. Project Echo Vale. It wasn't a weapon. Not really. During the Qatari incident, a convoy of human refugee ships, carrying families, children, teachers, had been fleeing a dying star system when Varelian warships appeared without warning. They opened fire. Earth's automated defense grid responded not with missiles, but with Echo Vale, a field that bent local time and space around the convoy, making it exist just outside normal perception. The Varelian missiles, unable to lock onto a target that wasn't quite there, looped back through microtemporal folds and struck their own launch bays. To the Varelians, it looked like an attack. To Earth, it was survival, but revealing the truth would mean exposing Echo Vale's full power, and that secret was more dangerous than any weapon. Because Echo Vale didn't just hide ships, it could in theory hide entire planets, or rewrite moments, or protect a species from being erased from history itself, and the Varelians knew it. Back in the conclave, Elias stood tall as the Arbiter demanded immediate punishment: exile, loss of all colonies, and permanent banishment from Council space. But Elias didn't argue. He simply said, "Show them the footage." Anya Petrova, Earth's youngest envoy, stepped forward. She inserted a small crystal into the Council's main display. Grainy but clear, it showed the real Qatari incident. Varelian ships firing first on unarmed human transports. No warning, no demands, just fire. Gasps filled the chamber. The Lumini leaned forward. The core hive mind pulsed with shared disbelief. The Arbiter snarled, "Fake human lies!" But then something stranger happened. The Council's own historical archives, supposedly secure, supposedly unchangeable, began to shift. Records that once blamed humanity now showed Varelian aggression. Logs that had been lost reappeared. It was as if the truth had been buried under layers of lies, and humanity had quietly dug it back up. Unseen by all Earth's AIs, trained over decades to detect patterns in data, had been working. Not to falsify, but to restore. The Varelians had spent centuries editing history to suit their rule. Earth had spent just as long remembering what was real. The chamber fell into chaos. Some species called for immediate sanctions against the Varelians. Others demanded an investigation. The Arbiter's voice rose in fury, but his power was already cracking. What no one knew, except Mira, was that the real retaliation had already begun. While the Council argued, a Varelian fleet mobilized near Mars. They thought Earth ships were disabled. They thought humanity was helpless. They were wrong. Hidden in lunar caverns, the Ghost Fleet waited, vessels wrapped in chronoton mesh ready to shift out of normal space-time. Commander Tariq Hale stood on the bridge of the Wayfarer, watching the enemy approach. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply gave the order. Prepare phased resonance. On Earth, children played in parks. Farmers harvested wheat. Teachers taught history, real history now. No one knew that their world had just drawn a line in the stars. The Galaxy Council had come to judge humanity. They never realized. Earth would retaliate because Earth didn't fight with rage, it fought with memory. And with that, the balance of the galaxy began to shift, not with a bang, but with a single human standing alone in a room full of gods saying, "We remember." The silence that followed Captain Elias Rourke's demonstration in the Galactic Council chamber was not empty. It was heavy, thick with confusion and fear. Across the galaxy, every human ship, station, and drone had gone dark at once. Not just offline, gone, as if erased from reality itself. The Varelian High Arbiter's scales rippled with unease. His species had ruled the Council for centuries, enforcing order through overwhelming force and ancient law. But this was something they had never seen. Back on Earth, in a hidden command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Mira Voss watched the live feed from the conclave with clenched fists. She wasn't a soldier, she was a physicist, a quiet woman who preferred equations to explosions. But she had helped design Project Echo Veil, the very technology that had just stunned the galaxy into silence. It wasn't a weapon, not really. It was a shield, a way to bend time and space around human assets so they existed just outside normal perception, not invisible, unreachable, like trying to grab smoke with your bare hands. The Council had accused humanity of using forbidden quantum entanglement weapons during the Qatari border incident. The truth was far simpler and far more dangerous. A convoy of human refugee ships had been fleeing a collapsing star system when Varelian warships opened fire without warning. Earth's defense grid had activated Echo Veil automatically, not to attack but to protect. The result? The Varelian missiles had looped back in time and struck their own launch bays. The Council saw aggression. Humanity had only tried to survive. Now, punishment loomed. Sanctions, exile, the loss of all off-world colonies. But Earth wasn't waiting for judgment. Near the dark side of the moon, inside caverns carved by ancient lava flows, the Ghost Fleet stirred. These weren't the sleek warships the galaxy expected. They were patched-together vessels. Old freighters, decommissioned science probes, even repurposed asteroid miners, each wrapped in a shimmering mesh of chronoton fibers. Commander Tariq Hale stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Wayfarer, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. He was lean with sharp features and a voice that never rose above a calm murmur, but his mind moved like lightning. "They're coming," he said simply. On the screen, red blips appeared near Mars orbit. A full Varelian strike force, 6 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and a swarm of hunter-killers. They thought Earth's fleet was disabled. They thought humanity was defenseless. They were wrong. "Activate phased resonance," Tariq ordered. Across the Ghost Fleet, engineers flipped switches, tapped consoles, and whispered old Earth prayers. One by one, the ships didn't vanish, they shifted. Their atoms vibrated at a frequency just outside normal spacetime. To the Varelians, the area around Luna remained empty, but in reality, hundreds of human ships now drifted in a ghostly layer of existence, watching, waiting. The Varelian armada arrived at Mars 2 days later. Their commander, General Vrax, expected to find human colonies begging for mercy. Instead, he found silence. The orbital stations were empty. The surface habitats powered down. No signals, no life signs. It was as if humanity had abandoned Mars overnight. Impossible, Vrax growled, his voice crackling through the command deck. Scan for cloaking fields. Quantum distortions, anything. His sensors found nothing, because Echo Veil wasn't cloaking. It was something deeper. Something the Varelians couldn't even name. Then, without warning, the lead Varelian cruiser flickered and disappeared, not exploded. Not destroyed, just gone. One moment it was there, the next empty space. Panic spread through the fleet. Ships scrambled, weapons charging, scanners sweeping wildly. But they were blind. The ghost fleet moved among them like shadows through fog. Aboard the Wayfarer, Tariq watched as his crews executed Operation Stillwater. Small drones, no bigger than birds, slipped into the Varelian ships through maintenance vents. These weren't bombs. They were temporal anchors, tiny devices that created microloops in localized time. Inside a Varelian engine room, a technician might turn a valve and find himself turning it again and again, trapped in a 3-second loop until his mind broke or his oxygen ran out. One by one, Varelian ships went dark, not from fire, from confusion, from time itself turning against them. Back on Earth, Anya Petrova, Earth's youngest ever diplomatic envoy, sat in a secure room in Geneva. She wasn't in the conclave anymore. She was working behind the scenes, feeding information to neutral council members. Species like the gentle Luminae of Vega 9 or the hive-minded core of the Twin Moons had long distrusted Varelian dominance. Now, Anya gave them proof. She transmitted encrypted data packets showing the real footage from the Qatari incident, Varelian ships firing first on unarmed human transports. But that wasn't all. Buried in Earth's deep archives were decades of subtle manipulations. How the Varelians had rewritten council records, erased evidence of their own atrocities, and framed smaller species for crimes they didn't commit. Human AIs, trained on pattern recognition and historical anomaly detection, had uncovered it all. Anya didn't send it as an accusation. She sent it as a question. Is this the justice your council stands for? Doubt spread like a virus through the conclave. The Varelians demanded the data be dismissed as human forgery, but the Lumini ran their own verification. The core cross-referenced it with their ancestral memory banks. The truth held. Meanwhile, the Varelian fleet near Mars was collapsing. Of the 18 warships that had arrived, only 5 remained operational. The rest floated like tombs. Crews lost in time loops or driven mad by recursive nightmares. General Vrax, desperate, ordered a full retreat. But as his flagship turned toward hyperspace, something strange happened. Its engines wouldn't engage. Not broken, not damaged, just unresponsive. As if the concept of forward motion had been temporarily revoked. Tariq smiled faintly. Phase them out, he said. The Wayfarer and 3 other ghost ships surrounded the Varelian flagship. They didn't fire. They emitted a low-frequency pulse, one that resonated with the Echo Veil field. For 10 seconds, the Varelian ship existed in 2 times at once, arriving at Mars and leaving it. The paradox overloaded its core, not with heat or explosion, but with silence. The ship simply powered down, all systems dead. A perfect, peaceful surrender. When the footage reached the Galactic Council, the chamber erupted. Some species called it a miracle, others a horror, but all agreed on one thing. Humanity was not what they seemed. Captain Rourke stood once more before the conclave, this time not as a defendant, but as a witness. He played the recovered logs from the Varelian flagship, General Vrax's own voice ordering the attack on the refugee convoy. The evidence was undeniable. Yet the real shock came when the Council tried to access their own archives to verify the timeline. Their systems glitched, files corrupted, records shifted. It was as if history itself had been gently rewritten over the years by human hands, yes, but not to lie. To correct. To restore truth that had been buried. Dr. Mira Voss, watching from Earth, knew the risk. Echo Vale wasn't just shielding ships, it was stabilizing reality against the Varelians' lies. But every use strained the fabric of causality. She could feel it in her bones, the universe groaning under the weight of too many what-ifs. Still, Earth held firm. The Varelians demanded immediate sanctions against humanity for temporal terrorism, but their support was crumbling. The Lumini proposed a new investigation. The Core declared neutrality. Even the warlike Drathan, longtime Varelian allies, fell silent. In the shadows of Mars, the Ghost Fleet remained, not hiding, waiting, ready. And on Earth, children played in parks, unaware that their world had just rewritten the rules of the galaxy. Farmers harvested crops. Teachers taught history, real history now. And in a quiet lab in Geneva, Mira Voss whispered to herself, "We didn't start this war, but we'll end it." The Galaxy Council had expected groveling. Instead, they got grace and steel. They thought humanity would beg for mercy. Instead, humanity showed them what true power looked like. Not in destruction, but in restraint. Not in conquest, but in truth. And the retaliation had only just begun. The victory near Mars did not bring peace. It brought fear and fury. The Varelians, humiliated and exposed, retreated not in surrender but in rage. Within hours of their fleet's collapse, a secret order was issued from the heart of their homeworld. Activate the Whisper Protocol. No one outside the Varelian High Command knew what it was. Not even their closest allies. But on Earth, deep inside a shielded bunker beneath the Himalayas, alarms began to scream. Dr. Mira Voss stared at the data streaming across her screen, patterns of psychic resonance, building like a storm in the upper atmosphere. It wasn't physical. It wasn't energy-based. It was something older, darker, a weapon that didn't kill the body but the mind. The Whisper Protocol was designed to flood human consciousness with pure, amplified terror. Using ancient bioresonance towers hidden in Varelian embassies across Earth, it would broadcast a psychic scream tuned to the unique frequency of the human brain. Billions would wake in the night drenched in sweat, convinced the end was coming. Then, as the fear grew, society would collapse from within. No bombs needed, no armies required. Just despair, and it began that very night. In Tokyo, a schoolteacher woke gasping, seeing shadows crawl across her walls. In Nairobi, a child screamed that the stars were falling. In Buenos Aires, traffic stopped as drivers wept without knowing why. Across continents, people clutched their heads, overwhelmed by visions of fire, silence, and endless night. Social media lit up with panic. Hospitals overflowed. Governments scrambled, but there was no enemy to fight, no missile to intercept. The attack was inside everyone's head, but Earth had prepared for this too. Years ago, after first contact with alien species revealed the existence of psychic warfare, a quiet project had begun, Project Lullaby. Not a weapon, a shield. And its core idea was simple. If fear could be broadcast, so could calm. Deep beneath the Himalayas, Mira activated the final phase. Every smartphone, every smart speaker, every connected device on Earth, over 12 billion nodes, began emitting a soft, subliminal signal. It wasn't sound. It wasn't light. It was a gentle pulse of neural harmony, woven into the background of everyday life. A lullaby for a planet. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but slowly the tide turned. In a village in India, a grandmother hummed an old tune while rocking her grandson, and the boy stopped crying. In a subway in Berlin, a man felt the crushing dread lift as his music app played a song he'd never heard before, yet somehow knew by heart. The signal wasn't forcing peace. It was reminding people of it. It used the very networks the Varelians thought made humanity weak, social media, streaming, global communication, and turned them into armor. Unknowingly, every human became part of a living defense grid. Not soldiers, just people, choosing hope over horror, one quiet breath at a time. While Earth fought the invisible war, diplomacy raged in the stars. Anya Petrova, Earth's envoy, moved like a ghost through the neutral sectors of the galaxy. She carried no weapons, only data chips and truth. She met with the Lumini elders on their floating gardens of Vega 9, showing them intercepted Varelian orders that proved the Whisper Protocol had been tested on lesser species, wiping out entire civilizations not with fire, but with madness. The Lumini, beings of pure empathy, wept light from their eyes. She then traveled to the core hives where thought was shared like breath. There she offered raw neural logs from Earth during the first hours of the attack, proof that humanity had not broken, that they had resisted not with violence but with connection. The core, who valued collective resilience above all, added their voice to Earth's defense. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the mood had shifted. The Varelians demanded emergency powers to contain the human threat, but more and more species stood against them. The Drethan, once loyal, now questioned why the Varelians had hidden psychic weapons for centuries. The Silthari Masters of Memory revealed that their archives showed similar incidents, tied to Varelian expansion throughout history. The Council was fracturing, but the Varelians had one last card to play. Hidden in the void beyond the Oort cloud, a weapon older than their empire stirred to life. The Singularity Lance, a device that could compress a star's core into a needle-thin beam of gravitational collapse. Aimed at Earth, it wouldn't explode the planet. It would crush it into a black hole smaller than a marble, erasing it from space-time itself. No debris. No trace, just gone. And it would fire in 72 hours. Mira learned of it from a dying Varelian defector, a scientist who believed his people had lost their way. The data came in fragments, but it was enough. The lance required a stable power matrix, fed by 3 quantum cores orbiting a dead moon in the outer system. Destroy those and the lance couldn't fire, but there was no time to send a fleet. No ship could cross that distance in time unless they bent time itself. In a secure hangar beneath the ice of Antarctica, the Odyssey waited. It was Earth's only chrono-capable vessel, a prototype built in secret, powered by a stabilized fragment of the Echo Veil field. It could slip through time, but only once, only for 72 hours, and only forward or back along its own timeline. Commander Tariq Hale volunteered to lead the mission. With him went Dr. Kenji Mori, the quiet genius who had helped design the ship's temporal drive, and Lila Cruz, a pilot whose reflexes were said to outpace thought itself. They knew the risks. Time travel wasn't clean. Paradoxes could unravel reality, but Earth had no other choice. As the Odyssey powered up, Mira met Kenji at the airlock. They had worked together for years, shared coffee at 3 a.m., argued over equations like lovers over poetry. Now she handed him a small data crystal. "If you succeed," she said, "this contains the final key to stabilize the Echo Veil long-term. If you fail, well, at least someone will know what we tried to protect." Kenji nodded. "We won't fail." The ship launched not with fire but with silence. As it pierced the atmosphere, it vanished, not into space, but into time. 72 hours earlier, in a quiet corner of the solar system, the Odyssey reappeared, but something was wrong. The stars were in the wrong places. The cosmic background hum had a strange echo, and waiting for them, drifting near the dead moon, were 3 ships, human ships, but older, damaged. One bore the name Odyssey, scorched and broken. From the comms came a voice, Lila's voice, but older, cracked with grief. "Don't do it," the voice warned. "Every time you try, it gets worse. The timeline is breaking." Tariq stared at the ghost of his own ship. "How many times have you tried?" he asked. 7, came the reply. 7 loops. 7 failures. Kenji. He didn't make it past the 3rd. Inside the Odyssey, Kenji paled. He looked at Lila. She met his eyes, and in that moment they both understood. They were already part of a cycle. But they had to break it. Ignoring the warnings, they moved toward the quantum cores. As they approached, strange figures appeared on their sensors, beings made of fractured light and static. Temporal sentinels, guardians of causality, sent to erase anomalies. The Varelians hadn't just built a weapon, they had awakened something older. The Odyssey dodged beams of unraveling time, Lila weaving through reality like a dancer in a storm. Kenji worked furiously, rerouting power, bypassing failsafes. Using parts from a child's toy Lila always kept in her cockpit, a spinning top that somehow stabilized local time fields. They reached the 1st core. Planted the charge. 2nd core, same. But at the 3rd, the sentinel struck. The Odyssey shuddered. Reality flickered. For a moment, Earth was green and whole. Then it was ash. Then it was never there at all. Kenji made his choice. "I'll stay," he said. I can anchor the feedback loop from inside the core chamber. My neural pattern will hold the paradox stable long enough for the charges to detonate. No, Lila said, voice breaking. It's the only way, Kenji replied. Tell Mira. Tell her the math was beautiful. He ejected in a pod, landed on the dead moon, and walked into the core chamber. As the sentinels closed in, he activated the final sequence. His mind became the fulcrum on which time balanced. The charges exploded, not with fire but with silence. Back in the present, on Earth, the sky glowed, not with destruction, but with a soft silver light. The singularity lance powered down, its energy harmlessly absorbed by the echo veil, now stronger than ever. In the council chamber, the Varelians stared at their dead weapon feed in horror. Humanity hadn't just stopped the attack, they had undone it before it began. And the galaxy watched, silent as Earth proved once more. They did not fight to destroy. They fought to protect even time itself. The sky over Geneva was clear the morning after the singularity lance failed to fire. Birds sang. Children walked to school. No one on the streets knew that Earth had just been saved from total erasure, not by armies or shields, but by a single man who chose to stay behind in a dead moon's core, holding time together with his thoughts. Dr. Kenji Mori's name would not appear in headlines, but in the quiet halls of Earth Command, a small light glowed on a memorial wall, steady, unwavering, like a star that refused to fade. Aboard the Odyssey, Lila Cruz sat alone in the cockpit, her hands still gripping the controls even though the ship was docked. Her eyes were dry, but her knuckles were white. She had flown through time, seen versions of herself break and rebuild, and watched Kenji walk into darkness without looking back. Tariq Hale found her there, silent, offering no words. Just a cup of real coffee brewed the old way with grounds and hot water. She took it. That was enough. On the other side of the galaxy, chaos ruled the Galactic Council. The Varelians, once proud and unshakable, now stood accused not just of aggression but of crimes against time itself. Their secret weapon had been exposed. Their lies unraveled. Species that had bowed to them for generations now turned away in shame or anger. The Lumini called for their removal from the Council. The Core Hive declared them unfit stewards of cosmic order. Even the Drathan warriors who respected strength above all admitted, fear was not strength. It was weakness dressed in armor. But the Varelians would not go quietly. Deep in their homeworld's core, the last of their high command gathered in a chamber lined with black stone. They knew their empire was ending. So they made one final choice, not to surrender but to burn everything down with them. They activated the Ash Protocol, a network of hidden doomsday beacons scattered across neutral systems. If the Varelian throne fell, the beacons would trigger, collapsing stars, poisoning worlds, and turning entire sectors into dead zones. It was not a plan for victory. It was a curse on the future. Earth learned of it from a broken transmission intercepted by a listening post near Neptune. The message was simple. If we fall, all fall. Mira Voss read the decoded text with cold dread. The beacons were already armed, and they would activate the moment the Council voted to strip the Varelians of their seat, which was scheduled for that very day. She called Tariq and Lila. No formal orders. Just 3 people in a room looking at a star map covered in red dots. We can't stop them all, Tariq said quietly. Not in time, but maybe we don't have to, Lila replied, her voice rough but steady. What if we give them a reason not to press the button? Mira's eyes narrowed. You mean, offer them a way out? Not mercy, Lila said. Dignity. Let them step down without triggering the beacons. Make it look like their choice. It was a gamble. The Varelians were proud to the point of madness. But pride could be used, like a lever if you knew where to push. Back in the conclave, Captain Elias Rourke stood once more before the assembled species. This time, he did not bring evidence or accusations. He brought an offer. Earth does not seek revenge, he said, his voice calm but carrying through the vast chamber. We seek balance. The Varelian hegemony has ruled for 500 cycles. That is not erased by their crimes. But it must end. We propose this, step down peacefully. Surrender the Ash Protocol codes. In return, Earth will guarantee safe passage for your people, protection for your culture, and a voice, though not a vote, in the new council. Murmurs spread. Many species expected Earth to demand blood. Instead, they offered a path forward. The Varelian delegate, a gaunt elder named Korath, stared at Rourke with burning eyes. "You think we fear death?" he hissed. "No," Rourke replied, "but you love your people, and they do not deserve to die for your pride." The words struck deeper than any weapon. In that moment, a message arrived, not from Earth, but from the Varelian homeworld. A civil uprising had begun. Younger Varelians, tired of endless war and lies, had seized control of key cities. They broadcast a single demand: end the Ash Protocol. Save our future. Korath's shoulders slumped. The fire in his eyes dimmed. He looked not at Rourke, but at the faces of the other species, some fearful, some hopeful, all watching him decide the fate of thousands of worlds. He turned to the Council's central console and entered a code. One by one, the red dots on Mira's map turned green. The beacons powered down. Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly the luminae rose. Not to speak, to bow. One by one, other species followed. Not to the Varelians. To Earth, for showing that strength could wear a gentle face, but the victory was fragile. As the Council began drafting new laws, a strange signal appeared at the edge of known space, faint, ancient, not Varelian, not human. It pulsed in a rhythm no translator could decode. Earth's deep space arrays picked it up first, then the core, then the luminae. Something was waking up. Mira studied the data with growing unease. The signal matched no known species, but buried in old human myths, stories from before spaceflight from every culture on Earth, there were echoes of it. A hum in the void, a watcher in the dark. She shared her findings with Rourke. "It's not hostile," she said. "Not yet. But it's curious, and it noticed what we did with time." Tariq and Lila were called back into service, not for war, for first contact. The Odyssey, repaired and upgraded, was the only ship that could safely approach the signal's source, a derelict station orbiting a black hole in the Cygnus Rift. It was old. Older than the Varelians, older than the Council. Its design was smooth, seamless, as if grown rather than built. As the Odyssey drew near, the station opened a bay door. No weapons, no threats, just an invitation. Inside, they found no beings, only a single chamber filled with light that moved like liquid. In the center floated a sphere of shifting colors. It spoke not in words but in feelings, images, memories. It showed them the birth of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations, and then clearly it showed Earth, not as a planet but as a spark in the dark. The message was simple. You have touched time. Now you are seen. Lila reached out not with her hand but with her mind. She sent back images of Earth, forests, oceans, children laughing, Kenji's quiet smile. The sphere pulsed warmly. Then it gave them a gift, a small crystal humming with stable chronoton energy. Not a weapon, a key, a way to heal time, not just bend it. When they returned, Mira wept. Not from fear, but from wonder. "They're not gods," she whispered. "They're gardeners. And they've been watching to see if we'd break the universe, or tend to it." The Galactic Council, still reeling from the Varelian collapse, had no idea what to make of this. But Earth knew. Humanity had passed a test no one knew was happening. In the weeks that followed, Earth began sharing small pieces of Echo Veil technology. Not the weapons, but the healing parts. They helped the Luminae restore a dying star. They stabilized a core memory archive that was fading from time decay. They even helped the Varelians rebuild, not as rulers, but as neighbors. Anya Petrova stood before the new council assembly, smaller now, fairer, and proposed a radical idea: the Terra Accords. A set of laws based not on power, but on responsibility. No species could alter time without consent. No mind could be invaded without cause. And every civilization had the right to grow at its own pace, free from fear. Many agreed. Some resisted. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt not like a hierarchy, but a community. And through it all, Earth remained quiet. Not loud, not boastful, just present, like a steady hand in the dark. Lila Cruz left the Odyssey one last time. She didn't retire. She opened a school in the Andes, teaching young pilots not just how to fly, but how to think, how to choose mercy when force was easier, how to listen when shouting felt right. Tariq Hale became Earth's first temporal liaison, working with the silent watchers in the Cygnus Rift to ensure no one ever again used time as a weapon. And Mira Voss, in her lab beneath the mountains, held the crystal from the station. She didn't use it. She studied it, learned from it, and every night before she slept, she whispered the same words. We're trying. We're learning. The Galaxy Council had expected Earth to retaliate with fire. Instead, humanity answered with wisdom, and in doing so, changed everything. The new Galactic Council chamber was different. Lighter, open. Where once dark stone and towering thrones loomed over accused species, now there were wide windows showing real stars, not projections. Vines from Earth grew along the walls, green and alive, tended by volunteers from a dozen worlds. At the center stood a simple podium, made of reclaimed metal from old warships. It was here that Captain Elias Rourke stepped forward one last time, not in uniform, but in a plain gray coat, the kind worn by teachers and engineers. He carried no weapon. No data slates, just a small wooden box. Behind him sat representatives not ranked by power but by choice. The lumini glowed softly in the back row. The core hummed in harmony near the front. Even a few Varelians were present, not as rulers but as observers, their scales duller now, their eyes quieter. They had lost everything, yet gained something unexpected. Peace. Rourke placed the box on the podium and opened it. Inside lay a single seed from an olive tree in Greece, one of Earth's oldest living things. He held it up for all to see. This, he said, his voice calm but clear, is what we offer. Not control, not laws carved in stone, but a chance to grow together. He spoke of the Terra Accords, not as rules forced upon others, but as promises shared among equals. No species would alter time without consent. No mind would be invaded without cause, and every world, no matter how small, had the right to choose its own path. Earth would share limited echo veil technology, but only to heal, never to harm. Only to protect, never to dominate, some doubted. The Drathan warrior chief grunted, arms crossed. Words are soft. What stops a strong species from breaking them? Rourke smiled faintly. Nothing stops you. That's the point. The accords only work if you choose to honor them. Just like trust. Just like peace. He then turned to the Varelians. You thought strength meant never bending. But true strength is knowing when to kneel so others may rise. A long silence followed. Then slowly the eldest Varelian stood. He did not speak. He simply placed his ceremonial dagger on the floor, a symbol of surrender, yes, but also of trust. Others followed. One by one, species laid down old symbols of power, data cores, neural whips, gravity shackles. Not because they were forced. Because they wanted to. On Earth, life went on. In Geneva, Dr. Mira Voss walked through a sunlit garden with a young Varelian student. Once an enemy, now learning how to stabilize time fields for crop growth on dying worlds. In the Andes, Lila Cruz watched her students launch small drones that painted the sky with harmless light, practicing control, not destruction. And in Antarctica, the Odyssey sat in dry dock, not as a warship but as a museum, its hull etched with names, Kenji Mori, and others who gave everything so others could have a tomorrow. But peace was not the end of challenge. Deep in the Cygnus Rift, the ancient station still hummed. The silent watchers had not spoken again, but their presence remained, a reminder that the universe was vast and humanity was still young. Mira often received faint pulses from the crystal they had given her, not commands, questions, like a teacher testing a student. One night she decoded a new pattern. It showed a distant galaxy untouched by any known species, and within it a signal, faint but familiar. Human, not from Earth, not from any colony. This signal was old, older than spaceflight, older than radio. She called Rourke. There's something out there, she said, something that left Earth long ago and never came back. He listened, then nodded. Then it's time we went looking, not with weapons, not with fear, but with open hands. The Odyssey was refitted once more, not for war but for journey. Lila would pilot it, Tariq would navigate, and Mira would lead the science team. Their mission: find the source of the signal, learn its story, and if possible, bring it home. As they prepared to leave, children from Earth's new temporal school gathered at the launch field. They didn't wave flags or shout slogans. They held up handmade signs. Come back soon. Tell us what you see. We'll keep the light on. The ship lifted gently, no roar, just a soft hum as it slipped past the atmosphere. Below, billions watched, not with dread but with hope. Back in the council chamber, Anya Petrova stood where Rourke had been. She was young, yes, but her eyes held the weight of what Earth had endured and what it had chosen to become. "The Galaxy Council once judged us," she said to the assembled species. "They saw fire in our hands and called us dangerous. But they never saw the seed we carried in our hearts." She placed the olive seed into a pot of soil brought from Earth, watered it with water from the Amazon, the Nile, the Yangtze, rivers of 100 cultures. "We do not fight to conquer," she said. "We fight to remind the universe that even in darkness, life finds a way." Outside, the first green shoot pushed through the soil. In the weeks that followed, the Terra Accords spread. Not by decree, but by example. A Lumini colony used Echo Veil harmonics to revive a poisoned ocean. A core hive helped a young species recover lost history from time fractures. Even former Varelian engineers worked with Earth scientists to turn war factories into farms that grew food across 3 planets. There were setbacks, of course. Old habits died hard. But every time conflict rose, someone would say, "Remember Earth." And that was enough. Years passed. The Odyssey sent back messages, short, poetic, full of wonder. They had found the source of the signal, a generation ship, launched in Earth's early days, lost for centuries. Its people had evolved, adapted, built a new society among the stars. They were human, but different. And they welcomed their kin not with suspicion, but with open arms. When the Odyssey finally returned, it carried not just crew but stories of unity, of survival, of hope echoing across the void. Earth did not become the new rulers of the galaxy. It never wanted to. Instead, it became something rarer, a friend, a healer, a voice that said, "You are not alone." And in quiet moments, when the stars shone brightest, people across the galaxy would look up and remember the day the Galaxy Council never realized Earth would retaliate. Because Earth's retaliation was not fire, but forgiveness. Not silence, but song. Not an end, but a beginning. The universe had tested humanity. And humanity had answered, not with a fist, but with an open hand, and that changed everything.